Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And it's not Sunday, it's Monday, but we are doing breaches of the week through Sunday. And so obviously if I'm not talking about something that was bomb dropping yesterday or today, that is why. But no time to lose. We're going to dive right in. Thank you to Sanders Slidenrink, Jacqueline Wolf, and Jill Sorensen for sending me a chunk of this information. With that, let's start with peer-to-peer lending marketplace known as Prosper. They detected unauthorized activity on September 7th, and they are looking at social security numbers obtained plus other information through their databases. They did not share the number of affected people here, but we are talking about 17.6 million unique email addresses, so it's going to be a ton, and we'll see what happens there. Best of luck if you use Prosper. Moving on. University of St. Thomas. This attack apparently took 1.8 terabytes of data from their network, and several faculty members told the Houston Chronicle that the university hadn't updated them on the situation since early September, when the new president basically said that specialists were looking at all of this and everything else. So the president also said they'd received formal notification, and there are more than 4,300 students for the fall 2024 and count more than 21,000 alumni. So here we are, and I'm guessing that's fall 2025 since it's brand new. But nevertheless, here we are. Heads up to you, St. Thomas students and faculty. Moving on, I'm going to give you a quick update on the Oracle e-business situation, because essentially, we're having organizations essentially declare for this, and the last one is Harvard. That's right, the major university and my alma mater. Kind of. Some of my work is being used in their cybersecurity program. Still waiting for my degree from that university. Moving on, let's head on over to Spain and talk about the Spanish fast fashion retailer known as Mango. They have stores around the world. Basically, one of its external marketing service providers suffered a data breach exposing limited customer information. So, in a statement this past Tuesday, the company said the compromised data included first names, countries, postal codes, email addresses, phone numbers, and whatnot. And Mango, for the record, their top markets are Spain, France, and Turkey. They do have dozens of stores in the United States, but more than 2,700 worldwide. Kind of, to me, smells like a Salesforce breach without saying Salesforce, but, I'll keep you up to date there. Moving on, Capita. On October 15th of this year, the UK Information Commissioner's Office, or ICO, announced a £14 million fine against Capita for failing to ensure the security of personal data as it relates to their breach. And that should have been in my mini segment, which I'm about to start, simply entitled, I must have screwed my notes up, simply entitled of, if, like Capita, you just paid for cybersecurity, you wouldn't be ruining your reputation, you wouldn't be getting sued, and we sure as heck wouldn't be talking about you. And with that, beyond Capita, let's move to the Oklahoma health system known as Integris Health. They just reached a $30 million settlement in a data breach class action that impacted 2 million people over 2 years ago. This class action was filed in the U.S. District Court for Western District of Oklahoma and accuses Integris, obviously, of negligence, and settled they did. Moving on. PNC Bank. A new class action lawsuit alleges that PNC Financial Services Group failed to properly secure and safeguard personally identifiable information of its customers during a data breach earlier this year. I don't have much more on this information, but if you're a PNC Bank or Financial Services Group customer, you're definitely going to want to check in and get your $30. Moving on. iMed Vision Care. They agreed a $5 million settlement to resolve their claims of a 2022 data breach that had consumer information caught up into it. And basically, if you were notified by iMed of this breach in 2020, you are eligible for compensation. Go get your $20. Moving on. Eastern Radiologists in North Carolina, they just agreed to pay $3.25 million to settle their class over a 2023 data breach that was reported to the HHS Office of Civil Rights and involved 886,746 patients. If you want to file a claim, you've got until December 1st of this year to do it, because the final approval hearing is on December 15th. So go submit your stuff for Eastern Radiologists of North Carolina. Moving on, let's head on up to Rhode Island and talk about Ortho. Rhode Island, who just reached a $2.9 million class action settlement for their cyber attack last year. And members of the class, if you'd like to basically retain your right to sue Ortho Rhode Island individually, you must mail a written notice to the settlement administrator no longer than December 29th. So if you're really gung-ho to throw them under the bus, go sue them, but you got until December 29th to declare it. Moving on, let's head on over to Indiana, where Fort Wayne Medical Education Program basically is up on the chopping block because multiple class action lawsuits have now been filed against them due to a data breach of personal and sensitive information for thousands of patients being stolen. At least 5 lawsuits so far have been filed, and this is the name of the game. You get a data breach, it's disclosed, here come the class actions. It's almost 24-hour turnaround at this point, and I've literally been doing breaches of the week for years. Moving on, Deloitte, yes, the big accounting firm. The state of Rhode Island's technology vendor as well could pay $6.3 million in a proposed class action settlement over their cyber attack, basically that impacted 640,000 Rhode Islanders, which I think is like the entire state. It's the smallest state in the nation. Anyway, after lawyer fees and all this kind of stuff, you'd get $7 because this is how it works. So here we are, but if you're a Rhode Islander, go get your $7. You know what? You can put cheese on that burger that evening. And so those were basically your lawsuits and payouts for the week. And quite frankly, if any of them had just actually paid for cybersecurity, they wouldn't be ruining their reputations. They sure as heck wouldn't be paying out this kind of money. And we definitely wouldn't be talking about them here. Moving on. I want to give you an update on Discord. I talked about this last week, and obviously they had a massive supply chain hit. So 5CA, the number 5CA, is a customer service support company that works with Discord. And recently, the chat platform said that the vendor had been breached as a part of a security incident where 70,000 government ID photos may have been leaked. Now, 5CA is saying in a post on its website that it was not hacked, meaning it was not the vendor that got all those Discord users hit. So, best of luck to Discord, but they're not having a good week. Moving on, Methodist Homes of Alabama and Northwest Florida, or Florabama, actually, as that area is called. And I was there a couple of years ago for a speaking gig, and that's when I learned it was called Florabama. So, they disclosed a data breach on October 8th of this year involving unauthorized access to the protected health information of about 26,000 employees and individuals. This was first detected. It actually occurred almost a year previously for the record, but they detected it on October 14th of 2024. So way to go, guys. It's like 2+ years now. Anywho, what you would imagine is out there: social security numbers, driver's license, state IDs, health insurance information, medical diagnosis, treatment, Medicaid, Medicare, date of birth, date of discharge, etc., etc. So the 25,579 individuals living in Florabama that have been affected, heads up to you. Moving on. Verisure, they reported a data breach. Basically, the literal week their IPO went just blockbuster. So everything else was behind a paywall, but if you're using Verisure, you're investing in Verisure, you might want to check on that stock. I don't know. I'll let you know. Moving up, let's head to the Great White North and talk about Canadian Tire, the most patriotic Canadian tire store, apparently. Anyway, they discovered a data breach earlier this month that exposed personal information from customers who made online purchases across several of its retail banners. Since this is limited to one e-commerce database and did not involve Canadian Tire Bank, apparently they're big enough to have their own bank, or Triangle Rewards loyalty program information, the breach, though, did not affect in-store systems and transactions, and all digital platforms remain operational, according to Canadian Tire. Basically, so if you went online with Canadian Tire, your name, address, email address, years of birth for online account holders of Canadian Tire, Sport Check, Marks El Epicure, and Party City, which I didn't know was owned by Canadian Tire, but okay, heads up if you use any of those. The company said the database also contained encrypted passwords and in some cases truncated credit card numbers that could not be used for purchases. In other words, like the last 4 digits or whatever. So heads up to you either way if you're doing all your tire shopping or other things at Canadian Tire. So there you go. Moving on, let's go to Simon Med Imaging, one of the largest medical imaging providers and physician radiologist practices in the U.S. They have 170 facilities across 10 states. They learned in late January of this year that one of their vendors had been breached. An investigation conducted by them said basically the network had also been hacked. So Simon Med got you breached through their vendor: name, address, date of birth, health insurance information, driver's license, government issue ID, social security, financial account, authentication credentials, and a whole bunch of medical information. So heads up if you've gotten radiology service, and you might just be caught up in this. Moving on. PowerSchool. We haven't talked about them in a while, and I want to give you an update because an American man was sentenced this past Tuesday to 4 years in prison after pleading guilty to cyber extortion in the mass data breach of student information systems, basically of PowerSchool used in Canada and the United States. Court documents show that Matthew D. Lane was sentenced in a Massachusetts court after he pled guilty to charges relating to the cyber extortion of 2 companies. The companies were not named in court documents, but PowerSchool basically confirmed Wednesday that Lane was the person behind the data breach. So kids, crime pays until it doesn't. So don't do it. Moving on. Video game software development firm Unity Technologies. If you're a gamer, you know who Unity is. They revealed that malicious code on its SpeedTree website skimmed sensitive information from hundreds of customers, impacting users who access the compromised site. You know, I haven't had a good old-fashioned skimming bit here on Breaches of the Week, so skimmers are still a thing, and Unity just got hit with one. So they discovered this on August 26th of this year, and basically they figured out that basically it had been there since March 13th. So if you're buying a whole bunch of stuff from Unity, like downloadable content, etc., you probably got your credit card ripped off if it was between March and August of this year. Excuse me. Moving on. Verisure. They reported a cyber incident to police after they discovered a data breach just 1 week after. Oh no, this is actually the same company I did earlier. It's been a long few days. Let me just tell you this. I'm running left and right. And if you're watching me on the video, you can actually see that most of my shelves are bare behind me. Obviously, I'm moving. So with that, spokesperson for Verisure said unauthorized third-party access their Alert Alarm, which is basically a business it previously acquired in Sweden that operates an IT system from the main Verisure network. So heads up to you. I guess if you're investing in Sweden, I thought it was here in the United States, but wow, like I said, busy week. Anyway, Watsonville Community Hospital, and we're heading to California. They're providing notice of a incident of personal and health information. They discovered activity November 29 of last year. Unknown party gained access between November 25th through the 30th of last year, and every possible PHI you could think of: names, addresses, social security numbers, dates of birth, tax ID numbers, driver's license, other government IDs, birth certificates, treatment plans. If you've jaywalked in the last 5 years, whatever it is, it's all there. Not a good look, Watsonville Community Hospital. Excuse me. And finally, I've got one finally for you this evening, and we are going to be talking about CISA and F5, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and the network infrastructure provider, F5. They make firewalls and more switches than firewalls. Anyway, CISA said this past Wednesday that they issued a sweeping emergency order directing all federal agencies to immediately patch critical vulnerabilities in certain devices and software made by F5. They basically confirmed a nation-state actor gained unauthorized access to F5 source code. So CISA, basically, obviously a part of Homeland Security, they manage risk, and cyber and physical infrastructure, et cetera. They issued the emergency directive 2601 following the company's disclosure that a foreign threat actor and maintained long-term persistent access to their internal development engineering environments, and they were basically, those environments were using their source code. Officials warned that attackers could exploit the vulnerabilities to steal credentials, move laterally through networks, and potentially take full control of targeted systems. F5 said they discovered the attack in August, but did not disclose exactly when it began. And this is why this is the finally for this evening, is because when you are looking at the overarching surface area for attack in the United States, especially the government, it's absolutely massive. And the government buys an absolute ton of technology from infrastructure providers. So, on the firewall side, they're buying a ton of Palo Alto and Fortinet and ForcePoint, et cetera. On the infrastructure side, they're buying Cisco, obviously F5 and some others, and on and on and on. The point here is that take cues from the government, because when they're issuing directives like this, say, oh my God, F5 has a problem, go patch your stuff. If you're a business and you say, oh, well, we have F5 stuff, patch your stuff too. You may not have anything to do with the government, but F5 sells to private sector as well. And so this really behooves us to understand that we need better threat intelligence in our life. And the reason why I'm pulling CISA into this is because CISA has been having issues this year. They lost a lot of senior advisors, basically, who were cut right out of the gate. They've really narrowed their scope down, so they're not being as effective as they could be with the remaining staff that they have in a government shutdown. I just talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They're running basically with the skeleton crew, and this government shutdown has gone on for almost 3 weeks now, something along those lines. This is a critical department for essentially the long-term cybersecurity of the United States. Not to mention the fact that CISA has, since its inception, historically been not basically an enforcement agency, but an agency that's there to be helpful, offering advisories, offering advice in general. They used to offer free testing and scans. I don't know if they still do anymore. There's been so much that's been cut. But this is one of those things that we just can't get rid of. Cybersecurity is a major issue that we have. And we've got a lot of issues going on, good, bad, whatever it is. I'm not getting political. Cybersecurity is agnostic to politics, but we're not immune from it. But we need to make sure we're shoring up our defenses. So I'll leave it at that. Best of luck to everybody, but make sure if you've got critical infrastructure, whether it's F5 or Cisco or Palo Alto Networks or Fortinet or whatever you're running, just keep it up to date. Even if it's just your own personal computer, don't ignore the patches. Don't ignore it. I don't care if it's a Mac, a PC, whatever. Everybody needs updating. We'll hack anything and everything has been or will be hacked. And that is, quite frankly, the entire point, or one of the major points, of my second TED Talk. So do the math on that. So those are your breaches of the week. Were you impacted or affected? Probably. But let me know. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, and I'm going to say private, informed, and secure. Take care.